So this is going to be the new moon forecast for Virgo, the moon in Virgo. Now you see it's actually happening at the very edge of Leo, 2934 Leo, Uttar Falguni Nakshatra is where the new moon is actually happening, even though it's really going to be the Virgo cycle, because a few hours later the sun is going to go into Virgo, and then for the next 30 days we're really working on the Virgo lessons of life. But you know, as we say, it's the actual new moon, which is the actual Amavasya, comes with sun and moon at the very edge of Leo, Uttar Falguni Nakshatra. Now, Uttar Falguni is ruled by a god called Aryaman, who is actually related to things like the separation of the day from the night in the Vedas. It's this energy of order and also friendship, friendliness, and he's related to the god Mitra, but also has to do with these kind of official things. So he's also, it's related to contracts and formal associations such as marriage. It's called the marriage star, Uttar Falguni, whereas Purva Falguni, the previous nakshatra, is called the courtship, the star of courtship. So Aryaman is the deity that is present in marriage and presides over those kinds of official declarations of, you know, affection or whatnot, and you know, has that quality of official business. So this is the crossover point between Leo and Virgo, with this deity Aryaman, who's one of the Adityas, one of the offspring of the divine mother Aditi, which are expressions of the sun, of Surya, meant to protect and give stability and structure here on earth. So Uttar Falguni, ruled by Aryaman, the god of contracts, the god of also friendship, union, and stability here on earth. So these, of course, are big themes for the next 30 days. The fact that the moon is Sandhi here at the very end of the sign, the sun and moon, shows that there is some, you know, uncertainty with that energy. It's kind of wavering. So, you know, there could be a whole adjustment to this idea. And, you know, Leo is a sign of the king, and the sun has been in Leo for the last, you know, 30 days. We're finishing this Leo cycle, which is about power, government, and the king. And as this cycle finishes, we're even seeing a lot of unrest in the world as power structures are challenged, and you know, what is perceived as tyranny and oppression are rebelled against. One of the main reasons this is happening is because of this Mars-Jupiter aspect. And if you look on this new moon day, its exact aspect. Mars aspects in the 8th house forward and the 4th house forward. So Mars is going to aspect Capricorn at 21 degrees, and Jupiter, or he's also aspecting 21 Taurus, 2123. Look, Jupiter is 2147. So Mars is putting a direct aspect on Jupiter, this 8th house aspect from him when the new moon happens. So this portends quite a volatile month, I think, in the political sphere. This is going to be the debate season, or the, you know, the time when, at least in the United States, we're going to have a lot of political debates and things like that, and the campaign season is going to heat up. You're going to see a lot of this the next 30 days because of this Mars-Jupiter aspect. Jupiter is our principles, our teachings, our beliefs, what we're believing in. And make no mistake about it, you know, again, this is one of this kind of bad astrology 101, but it's always said Jupiter is spirituality. You know, all the planets are spiritual. Jupiter is our philosophies, which often includes our political philosophies, our political alliances. Make no mistake about it, political leaders are Jupiterian in their relationship to us. It's not just a priest. You know, that's one quality of Jupiter in a religious sense. because Jupiter is about righteousness and the philosophy that we think is right. So our philosophy of God, our philosophy of our higher meaning, takes the form of our spiritual teachers, like our ministers and gurus on that level. But then on a secular level, which is like with government and whatnot, Jupiter is literally like the ministers and those who guide us, and those that we believe in. Those that we believe have our best interest in mind and that we trust to guide the nation. Of course, it's also literally like our teachers in school. So this rhetoric of whether you're Republican or Democrat or Libertarian or Independent or whatever, your philosophy is what Jupiter is about. Mars aspecting Jupiter means a strong debate, a vigorous debate, and potential arguments over our philosophies, and at a feverish pitch, perhaps. So as I record this on September 13th, there's unrest in the Middle East right now as this Mars-Jupiter aspect compresses. And I say unrest in the Middle East directed toward U.S. embassies, American embassies in Libya, Egypt, and Yemen have been under siege, and there's been diplomats killed and whatnot. It could be a very volatile situation, which is related to our intervention in their countries. Whatever you think about that, it's obviously there because we helped, or we had a presence in the Libya, Egyptian, and Yemeni revolutions, or at least their political unrest of the last year since the Arab Spring. All three of these countries had an involvement in that Arab Spring. Of course, there are other hotspots in the Arab world, not the least of which is Syria, which we might see a much deeper catalyst of revolt in that country. We might see that get reactivated, as well as, of course, there's always Iran and the potential between Iran and Israel, and the rhetoric between the U.S. and Iran. So we could see a lot of escalation of tensions around the world with this Mars-Jupiter being so close on the new moon. This is the genesis of the next 30 days, you might say. But even between now and Friday at 6 p.m. or 7 p.m. Pacific time, we could see a ratcheting up of this intensity. Now, a few other things that are happening. This is really the Virgo cycle, which is about organizing that kingdom. Again, Leo is the kingdom, the seat of power that is at the heart of our life. The consistent power, the consistent fire is what Leo is about. That purity that burns a consistent path through our life. When the sun is powerful, or we have a lot of planets in Leo, that enduring, unwavering action towards our highest truth will be, important in our life. That's Leo. Now that goes into Virgo. So the kingdom, which is Leo, requires a lot of work, a lot of details, a lot of management, a lot of organization and communication to make the kingdom run smoothly. You need the bridges and the roads and the people and the systems and all that to work, or else the peasants will turn on you. So Virgo is very much about all that work, all that busyness of managing a kingdom. The zodiac is also what's called the Kala Purusha, which is the being in time, and each one of the signs relate to a body part. Leo is literally like the stomach of the Kala Purusha, where we eat food, and we eat food to energize the kingdom. But what happens after we eat the food? It goes into our stomach, which is that feeling of being rewarded, or that feeling of feeling satisfied, which is what Leo gives us, that hunger to be satisfied with our life, and then the digestion to, the fire to digest it. But then after that hunger and satiation of Leo, which again, it can also be gluttony. The king can be a big fat pig just living off the peasants, or he can be an honorable king who just takes and eats as much as he needs and then lets the kingdom flourish. But after we eat and digest, and the food goes in our stomach in Leo, Virgo is very much related to the the intestinal tract, the digestive system that takes and breaks that food down and then distributes it where it's supposed to go. Think of the genius of the body and all the little tasks that your body must perform. Much of it is in the digestive tract. That's where the nutrition in your body becomes used or not used. And that's related to Virgo, all those little tasks that need to be done. So this is the quality of Virgo that we're going to be working on next. And so we're even seeing here at the tail end of this Leo cycle, all this unrest. As the sun goes into Uttar Falguni, from the end of Purva Falguni into Uttar Falguni, and the moon works towards Nu, we're seeing this revisiting of power from the peasantry, to what they perceive to be oppressive. And again, the main reason we're seeing it explode now is because of this aspect by Mars, or this Mars aspect by transit. I talk about this a lot. I don't hear other astrologers actually mention this, but this is a one-way aspect. Mars is aspecting Jupiter. Jupiter is not aspecting back. In Vedic astrology, aspects are very specific, and especially one-way aspects, you really pay attention to them, because it's not a mutual aspect. Jupiter is not aspecting Mars. Mars is aspecting Jupiter. So Jupiter stuff, which is our principles, our ideals, our sense of meaning and purpose, the philosophies we're following, or the philosophies that we think are oppressing us, are being challenged by Mars right now. So we're doing this politically in our country. People around the world are doing it relative to their governments as well, and maybe even with those governments that they think have maybe interfered, like the United States government is perceived in Libya, Egypt, and other countries around the world, especially in the Arab world, because we've intervened in their countries' politics and leaders and whatnot. So, and I'm not judging it as right or wrong. I'm just saying Mars aspecting Jupiter is exciting that, challenging that, and bringing a lot of intensity there. It's very likely these are radical fringe elements of those countries. But again, it's asking those questions and also challenging our political affiliations at home, because at least in the United States, as soon as that happened, one of the things in the news is, the Republican candidate Mitt Romney came out and really politicized it, like right away, before he even knew that some of the U.S. diplomats had been killed. He came out with a very political statement about how it's the administration's fault and just different things like that, which then he had to kind of retract from. And so it's, again, it's kind of brought about some partisanship rancor, even in our debate here at home. And it initially hasn't looked very favorable for Republican candidate Romney to have come out so quickly and condemned the administration. It's usually not done especially when there's deaths abroad. Usually partisanship, at least in the short term, we rise above that and not come out with an impulsive statement. It was really a pretty impulsive statement for him to come out and, blame the administration for this right away before he knew what had happened. But anyway, aside from that, it shows the political rhetoric, heating up around that issue as well. So the next 30 days is going to be a time of managing and organizing your kingdom, managing and organizing those things that give you power, and with scrutinizing these power structures, listening to what people say, really scrutinizing, okay, what does that mean that this person did, like the example I just used? Is Romney right to criticize the administration, or was that impulsive use of, politics? Is he playing politics with this? And seeing who has our best interests at stake, who is going to organize and manage and run the better kingdom, for instance, because that's what we're looking at least in the U.S. and in world economies. The world economic climate is also very much teeter-tottering on the brink here, and there's a lot of a resurgence of instability with the European financial markets, and they're looking to see if the U.S. Federal Reserve is going to step in and initiate another round of quantitative easing, as it's called, which is just printing money we don't have. Again, this whole thing is these are going to be big issues for the next month with the Virgo cycle, which is about managing the resources we have, doing the best with what we have, organizing the paradigm that we have right now. And the good thing is that as the sun moves through Virgo, it's going to be aspected by Jupiter in Taurus, but Jupiter's about to turn retrograde. It's still going to be an aspect, though, from Jupiter, and also Mercury is exalted. So one of the big things about this Virgo cycle is Mercury, the ruler of Virgo, is exalted. So this means that we have a lot of discrimination and a lot of potential to really assess these things with discernment, beyond the passion of, all of the rhetoric and all of the exaggerations and distortions of political campaigns. We may really get to see the truth and see a tangible expression of what's happening. Remarkably, one thing that's happened the last couple weeks, especially on the anniversary of 9/11, is PBS, a major news station or a major network in the United States, which means public broadcasting system, has been running a documentary that basically states that there's strong forensic evidence and evidence to support that the 9/11 collapse of the Twin Towers was actually a controlled demolition. The truth is, from my point of view at least, and you might disagree, but those buildings look like they were exploding, not like they just collapsed. How can 100-story buildings fall at the rate of gravity? At some point the structure would have held, even if a building flew into the 84th floor and the top of the building started to fall down. At some point, the 20th floor, you would think it would have held. It wouldn't just collapse and explode into nothing. And so this documentary on PBS, it literally has been playing over and over again, is actually legitimizing the perspective that 9/11 was planned, that it wasn't just Arab terrorists in caves in the Middle East flying airplanes into buildings, and that the likelihood that buildings, 100-story buildings, can fall at the rate of gravity and just collapse in on themselves and disappear doesn't really make a lot of sense. Again, if you just think about it sensibly, at some point the structure would have held. At least part of it. The building, nothing held. The buildings were completely demolished. At some point, all of the metal wouldn't have melted all the way to the ground. So, anyway, I'm saying this because this is also happening, this Mars-Jupiter aspect, where we're really challenging our deeply held beliefs, our deeply held values. Our deeply held beliefs, Jupiter, and those values, Taurus, Jupiter and Taurus, with Ketu. Really scrutinizing these things, aspected by Mars. Ready to look at them with courage. Ready to face things that we might not want to face. Like, what does it mean? Did our government plan these buildings so we could get into wars? I mean, what are the implications if 9/11 was an inside job? Whether it was by the government or who did it. So I say this because this is becoming mainstream and getting a lot of traction on PBS, public broadcasting system. So this is also a big phenomena of what's happened in the last few weeks, especially the run up to the celebration, or not celebration, but the anniversary of 9/11. So the reason I'm saying this is because Jupiter aspecting Mercury, aspecting exalted Mercury in Virgo, means even in this country, we're looking critically at maybe what our government's role would have been in things as we move up to election, as we have the anniversary of this event that at least 11 years ago, 12 years ago, was it 2000? Yeah, 11 years ago, no one would have said, oh, it was an inside job. We were just shocked. So you should look at that. That documentary it's not by a bunch of conspiracy theorists. It's by demolition experts. It's very legitimate, very credible. Otherwise, it wouldn't be running on PBS. They're a public broadcasting system. So, very interesting backstory to this new moon in Virgo, where we're organizing the paradigm and really questioning. This is the nature of Mercury, to have an unbiased view, to say, okay, well, I know I've been told to believe this, but what really happened? Does that really make sense? Let me think. So, this is the backstory for the next month. And now I'll talk about how this affects each of the 12 astrology signs, and how you will be questioning your paradigm, how you will be questioning your motives and beliefs, and your 9/11s, or your strong biases that you may have been believing in that may be shattered. And this is, if you're not one of my gold members, you can also hear this for your astrology sign for only 1 penny, and also get a free, also get a 2-week trial to my member site. So go ahead and check that out if that's interesting to you as well.